Hi, this is Kimberly Adams. I'm the host of the Marketplace podcast, Make Me Smart, and I'm here in Havana, Cuba for a special Marketplace trip. Cuba is a really special place with a really interesting history and economy, especially when it comes to trade and money. So here are 5 things you may not know about Cuba's economy. If you're from America, you can't just stay at any hotel. Most of the hotels are owned by the Cuban government, and other private hotels aren't allowed because of the sanctions. So Americans have to stay at just a handful of hotels where we are legally allowed to book a reservation. The same goes for restaurants. Since most of the restaurants are owned by the Cuban government, which according to the U.S. is a state sponsor of terrorism, we can't eat places owned by that government. So we've been mainly eating at informal restaurants called paladars, which are a relatively recent concept here, but very popular among the tourists. Cuba's currency is the Cuban peso, but because of the strict sanctions and the consequences of the embargo, American dollars are actually a lot more valuable here. Now, the official exchange rate is something like 120 Cuban pesos to the dollar, but in the informal economy, it's more like 330 Cuban pesos for the dollar. There are shortages of lots of products here in Cuba, including gas. Because the international market for oil is in dollar, Cuba has to work around the sanctions to try to get dollars and get oil from wherever they can, usually from Russia. And people line up sometimes even a day in advance just to try to get gas from some of the approved stations. Cuba was originally colonized by Spain, which wanted them to grow sugarcane, and then even after independence, as it's been dependent on other countries, often they still want Cuba producing sugar, but that's been really bad for the soil. And now Cuba's in a bind because only about a third of its land is even arable for growing crops.
For more about my trip to Cuba, head over to the Make Me Smart show page on marketplace.org.